going on, everybody? I go by the name of Kari, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on SneakerPhetish. 2022 celebrates the 50th anniversary of the iconic Nike Cortez. Today, we have the latest iteration in the Nike Cortez, one pair that's part of a 4-part series by Union and Nike celebrating this classic silhouette, but the problem is that this shoe doesn't have any resale value on it, so not a lot of people are talking about it. Why doesn't it have any resale on it, and is this one of the best sneakers with no resale value on it in 2022? Without further ado, let's get into it. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Nike and Union Cortez in the Sesame colorway. I feel like there's been so much conversation surrounding this sneaker that it's kind of soured people's view on the shoe itself. What I've been saying a lot lately is that when it comes to sneakers, we have to accept them for what they are and for who they're for. Everything isn't for everybody out here. The Cortez as a silhouette, of course, is not for everybody. We're gonna get into a little bit of the history of the Cortez and why it's so hot today, but first impressions, it's not bad. It's, to me, a good looking shoe. You just have to appreciate it for what it is. Now, with that being said, before we dive into the shoe, we all know that Union itself has been trash for many, many reasons lately, and we're gonna get into that too. But before we get into all that other stuff, let's dive in a little bit deeper. All right, starting with the upper of the shoe here. Now, the idea, according to Chris Gibbs from Union, was to reinvent the Nike Cortez. As a matter of fact, real quick, just going back to the box, that reinvention really starts from the box itself. We have a classic looking font, but this time instead of Nike, it reads Union, but it's actually giving us that old 1970s Nike font, old 1970s style Nike box with the stripes, but instead there it says Know the Ledge or Knowledge, which is kind of a Union LA play on words. Even the paper inside of the box gives us old school Nike ad campaigns for the Cortez, but updated with how the sneaker is made this time around and a little bit of history about the Cortez itself. So as the packaging says, it reinvented the Nike Cortez. Now with that reinvention, the reinvention really comes more in the voice and the style of the shoe and the materials, but not the silhouette itself, which I think is really dope. They kept the same shape, the classic look of the Nike Cortez, but they've overlaid this, first of all, with some premium materials. The first thing we're going to discuss is the nappy suede, the sesame colored suede all along the collar of the shoe, down half of the eyelets, on the quarter panels, going down the mud guards, and then going into the toe box of the shoe as well. Really nice premium stuff. I like the suede. Now, laid on top of that suede is a premium suede swoosh here, this time in this reddish color here. Let's talk about this print here that's underneath that in the quarter panels running down the shoe on the lateral and medial side. Now, it's a canvas material here, which is very interesting. It gives it a little bit of durability. It's very interesting, but the thing about it was Chris Gibbs said that this was actually made to mimic African textiles, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit. The reason why it caught me off guard is because while I understand that Union is an African-American, a Black-owned business, this textile here isn't giving me African-American kind of textile or kente cloth. That's really what comes to mind, as much as it's honestly giving me Mexican blanket. And the thing about it is the Cortez, which is a shoe largely popular within the Latino and Latina community, I don't know why they wouldn't just pay homage and put Mexican blanket-like material, Mexican blanket-like print underneath this as Union LA's kind of homage or kind of thank you back to the community that really made the Cortez super popular. But for whatever reason, they didn't say it was that. They said that it was based on African textiles. So African inspiration inside of a sneaker that pays homage to Los Angeles. Okay, capping that off with the lateral view, you have the classic orange Union LA tag here. We see that on all of the Union collaborations. Taking a top-down look at the shoe here, I love the incorporation of the pink clay. That's the formal name for the reddish color here, and the sesame color here. It blends very nicely. Love how they did this kind of half and half with the stitching, the kind of zigzag stitching you can see here on the eyelets. So both of these are that really nice suede, but half of it is that pink clay, half of it is that sesame. I really like that. Really nice touch here with this kind of bluish aqua turquoise looking Cortez 72 tag on the Dubray. Really nice. Interesting tongue on these. You have a deconstructed foam exposed tongue on this one. Nylon tongue with that really nice pink clay with the kind of bluish Union old school Nike logo on the tongue tag as well. Can you guys see that? Hopefully you can, but it says Know the Ledge in the classic Nike font. Right underneath that, you have the Frontman logo, the classic Union Frontman insignia. And right underneath that, if you can see it, it basically just says, in collaboration with Union Los Angeles, you know, kind of the fine print there, but it's really dope. Speaking of the Frontman logo here, you also get that same Frontman logo on this kind of flapped up, kind of two-fold heel tab here. So on the first layer here, you get the Frontman, but when you pull it up here, it actually has the classic Nike for the Cortez as well. Fun fact, if you didn't know this, that classic Frontman logo that you see on a lot of Union stuff is actually a caricature of Sidney Poitier from A Raisin in the Sun, a classic dance scene within the movie. If you guys are familiar with the movie or the actor, that's where the Frontman is coming from. Classic black cinema. If you haven't watched it, watch A Raisin in the Sun. Two sets of laces with these here. You get this red lace that kind of looks a little bit more textured, kind of incorporates the sesame color as well as the pink clay. And then you're also going to get the Dutch green colored laces as well. Not sure which ones you guys would do with these. If it were me, I probably would keep the regular laces in them, but I tend to be a traditionalist. You guys can swap them out, of course, with the green if that's your thing. Let's go back to the midsole and outsole on these. If you'll notice, that little speckled look looking like pimento cheese is actually regrind material. So basically, you guys know the regrind material is the recycled material that they use from scraps of other sneakers that are on the cutting room floor at Nike. They grind them back up, repurpose them, remold them, and they make new shoes out of them. And that's what we're getting here. It's a cost-effective way to make new sneakers at Nike, cuts down on their cost a little bit, cuts down on their waste a little bit, and gives a really interesting kind of context, a little interesting contrast of color here to the shoe as well. So kind of like actually the way this came out. And finally, on the insole of the shoe, a cork insole on the shoe with the Union and Nike swoosh co-branded insignias all over the insole. Really, really nice. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the Union LA and Nike Cortez in the Sesame colorway. Now, a little bit of history about the Cortez, and then we'll jump into what in the world happened with this release. Bill Bowerman had this really dope idea, of course, having a running history, that he wanted to make a sneaker that was an incredible sneaker for running. And he achieved that along with the team over at Onitsuka Tiger. If you guys remember, Tiger was the original brand that used to be what Blue Ribbon Sports became, and then of course Blue Ribbon Sports is what Nike Inc. became. So back when Bill Bowerman was still working with Onitsuka Tiger, he created this sneaker that was not originally called the Cortez. Originally, this sneaker was actually called the TG24, the Tiger 24, but they wanted a name that was going to be a little more interesting, so they ended up calling it the Mexico. But the Mexico was a name that really didn't have enough pizzazz to it, so they actually changed the name again to the Aztec. Now, here's where it gets very interesting. Adidas almost sued Nike for calling this sneaker the Aztec because they had a sneaker called the Azteca Gold, and they felt like that was a little too close to what Adidas was doing. To avoid a lawsuit, Nike changed the name yet again, but Nike, being the petty company that Nike is, changed the name to represent a Spanish conquistador named Hernan Cortez, and that's where the name Cortez came from. The funny thing about Hernan Cortez was that he was a conquistador that actually contributed to the fall of the Aztec Empire. So basically, Nike went to Adidas and said, okay, fine, if y'all want to keep the Aztec name, we'll adopt a name for the conquistador that brought down the Aztec Empire. And true to its name, Nike has continued to dominate Adidas ever since. The sneaker came out to massive success. Everybody bought it, and when Onitsuka Tiger and Blue Ribbon Sports decided to split and become its own company, Blue Ribbon Sports was actually able to keep the name Cortez, even though both companies agreed that both of them would be able to continue using the silhouette itself. Nike, of course, being a marketing machine, first and foremost, created some incredible ways of influencership even back as early as the 70s and 80s when it came to the Cortez. One of the first things that they did was they created a women's Cortez that was called the Señorita Cortez, and they put the shoe on Farrah Fawcett, who was acting on Charlie's Angels at the time, and because of a famous scene of her skateboarding in the Señorita Cortez, all of a sudden, a lot of people wanted to be like Farrah Fawcett, and the sales started going even higher. Now, some of these stories are really nice and family friendly, and on the Sneakers app, they actually did an entire celebration of the Cortez, but there was one part of the Cortez that they left out: gang culture. enter in the Los Angeles explosion of the Nike Cortez. The Cortez back in the day was a really interesting sneaker because it was a slick looking sneaker, really clean design, was pretty no frills, and was very cheap. It was super affordable. So what ended up happening was, because out in the West Coast, a lot of the people that were out there didn't really have a ton of money, the Cortez ended up being kind of a staple sneaker that was stylish enough to wear to school, and you could still rock a pair of Nikes even if you couldn't afford the Air Jordans or all the other sneakers that were coming out at the time. Because this became such an affordable sneaker to wear and became such a classic staple on the West Coast, it was naturally adopted by the street gangs that were emerging in Los Angeles as well. So much so that the Nike Cortez actually became a part of the official uniform for street gangs out in Los Angeles at the time. Now you compound that with the massive influence of pop culture and the fact that NWA, another huge rap group that was coming out of Los Angeles at the time, made a reference to the Cortez, calling them Dope Man Nikes in the song Dope Man back in, I believe, 1987-ish. Shout out to Eazy-E. He wore the Cortezes a lot back in the day as well. So of course, naturally, with a rapper like that having such influence, everybody wanted to either be a part of the street gangs or look like their favorite rappers, and the Cortezes got more and more and more popular. May Eazy-E rest in peace. So now the Cortez has gotten popular in sports, television, and music. The only other place for the Cortez to be seen and to gain popularity is in the movies, and that happened with the film Forrest Gump. One day, Forrest Gump, played by Tom Hanks, just decides to get up and goes for a run, and he decides to run and continue running across the entire country and back, and he was gifted a pair of brand new Cortezes by Jenny, who played his love interest in the movie. So now everybody wants a pair of the Forrest Gump Cortezes, or that sneaker that Forrest Gump was wearing in the movie. So the Cortez has had a long history of being one of the most iconic silhouettes of all time. They've cemented their place in sneaker history and in culture, even if it's not the most popular silhouette from a resale perspective. The interesting thing about the Cortez is that it never really found global popularity like the Air Force One did. This model, for whatever reason, maybe the shape of it, maybe the look of it, I don't know what it was, but it was always super huge over on the West Coast, but it never quite took off in other regions or, of course, around the globe. And so that's part of the reason why the demand on this shoe seems to be down a lot. Some people say that the colorways aren't really hitting for them. I beg to differ. I think that the colorways are nice. I just think that the Cortez as a whole it will always be a popular sneaker, but it won't be a massively globally popular sneaker like the Air Force One. And that's okay, because Nike is still moving units of these. Now, what also led, I believe, to the downfall of the resale and the popularity of this sneaker was the way that Union handled a lot of these releases. Union actually put out a statement that the Off Noir colorway, which is the black and green colorway of this sneaker, was a Union exclusive. I ranted about this on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, follow me at SneakerPhetish. And I'll rant about it here as well. The funny thing about that Off Noir colorway is that even though Union put it on their own Instagram as a Union exclusive colorway, it started popping up in lots of other stores in that same colorway across the country. Lots of stores were carrying the Off Noir colorway. What that means is, simply put, Union lied to us to sell out of the sneaker in their own store. That's not cool for a community store that prides itself on being honest, transparent, and open with its customers. If Union lied to us about that, what else has Union lied to us about? Are they really backdooring sneakers? Do they not care about bots? What else is Union doing to lose the trust of their customers and their clientele out here in their fan base? Not only that, but Union actually went backwards to me in terms of their collaborations. Their hottest collaboration to date, arguably, is still the Air Jordan 1. Then they did 4s. Then they did other things. But like now we're doing the Cortez, and while it's great for Los Angeles and the area, it's probably the most mid of all the other collaborations that Union has done up to this point. I don't know what Union is out here doing these days. I don't know why they decided to take this route as far as not being truthful and upfront with their customers, but it is not a good look for the company. People have not been satisfied with Union for quite some time, and hopefully they're listening to the people and doing what they got to do to get their stuff together, because not only is Union losing trust in its customers, but even one of the co-founders is steadily separating herself from the brand Union into her own brand, and that's Beth Burkett, or Beffy. On the Jordan brand reveal for the retros coming out in fall of 2022, she actually admitted, probably through a slip of the tongue, that she was coming out with the Jordan 7 collaboration, not with Union, but through her own personal brand that she's complete owner of, which is Beffy's Beauty Supply. Now that's going to be an interesting one to see. I'm interested to see what the visuals look like and what that's going to be, because I feel like that's going to be a whole lot of black girl magic on that visual, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. All of that translates to the resale market. Again, hype and wearability is where the intersection happens for resale pricing. The reason why these sneakers aren't worth squat on the resale market right now is because the hype just isn't there, because it's not that popular of a silhouette, and because Union has been kind of trash lately with the way that they've been dropping their sneakers. So if you are a fan of the Cortez and if you like the Union Cortez, as far as I go, it's a fantastic pickup. If you like this shoe, if this is for you, if this is a type of sneaker that you resonate with, you definitely need to pick this up while the prices are low, before anybody gets hip or resellers try to buy up whatever's out there and try to raise the price on them. Grab these up. You can get a great shoe, a Union collab, for a great deal. And again, it pays homage to a classic silhouette that's been around for 50 years and is probably going to be around another 50 years. But with all that said, that's pretty much all that I got to say about these. Now it's time for you guys to sound off down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about the Union LA and Nike Cortez in the Sesame colorway, the Off Noir colorway, or even the other colorways that are slated to drop soon. Are you a fan of these? Were these a must grab for you? Did you pick these up? Are you passing? Are these on the reach bag list? Whatever it is, whatever you're feeling about these, sound off down below. Let me know. Of course, right down in the comments, make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family, to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because I guarantee you I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish, taking a look at these with me, unboxing them with me for a couple of minutes. I go by the name of Kari. This is the Union LA and Nike Cortez in Sesame, and until next time, I'm out.